Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on France 24. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Israel, where he's urging calm from Israelis and Palestinians this Monday. His visit to the region comes amid a surge of violence in the region. Just hours before he arrived, Israeli troops shot and killed a Palestinian driver at a checkpoint. The man who was killed is the 35th Palestinian killed by Israeli forces this month. And the incident follows a shooting at a synagogue in East Jerusalem on Friday that left 6 Israelis dead. Now, Blinken is due to meet with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas on Tuesday. Here's Blinken speaking earlier.
That's why we're urging all sides now to take urgent steps to restore calm, to de-escalate. We want to make sure that there's an environment in which we can, I hope, at some point create the conditions where we can start to restore a sense of security for Israelis and Palestinians alike, which, of course, is sorely lacking.
And for more on this, we're joined by Matthew Kroenig. He is a professor at Georgetown University and director of studies at the Atlantic Council. Thanks so much for being with us here on France 24. I want to put you in Antony Blinken's shoes for just a moment. He's in a very tough spot here. What do you think he should be trying to accomplish as he meets with both the Israelis and the Palestinians?
Well, you're right that he's in a difficult spot. And I think the balancing act he's trying to strike is on one hand, the United States does have important interest in the region, and Israel is one of the United States' closest partners traditionally in the region. And so he wants to shore up that relationship. On the other hand, I think the Biden administration has concerns with Netanyahu himself and some of his policies. I think they're worried that his aggressive approach in the West Bank and Iran may be inflaming situations in the region. They're worried about some of his potential backsliding on democracy at home. And interpersonally, Netanyahu had a cool relationship with Obama and Democrats in the past, was closer with Trump. And so I think there's a little bit of skepticism in the personal relationship as well.
Well, I want to pick up on what you just said there. I mean, how much of a challenge is this new hard-right government of Benjamin Netanyahu? You know, it's described as the most far-right and religious in its history. What kind of challenge is that posing for the U.S.'s diplomatic position here?
Well, there are several. One, as I alluded to, Netanyahu is looking to make changes to the judiciary in Israel that many people see as an assault on Israel's democracy. And so that's a concern for an administration, a Biden administration, who's talked about a global competition between democracy and autocracy. Second, we've seen that Netanyahu has been more willing to use force in the West Bank, promote and protect settlements in the West Bank. And the Biden administration worries that that may undermine the prospects for a peaceful settlement between Israel and the Palestinians. It was always a long shot, but this may make it more difficult. And then there was just the news this weekend about the Israeli strike on a missile facility in Iran. Is Iran going to retaliate? Could this lead to conflict in the Middle East when the United States is preoccupied with, of course, the war in Ukraine and worried about China? So there's a lot of issues to be concerned about for the Biden administration.
Let me pick up on that. You know, the U.S. media are reporting that Israel was behind that drone attack that targeted a military plant in Iran. If that is indeed the case, what does this tell you about Israel's willingness to go it alone and not to coordinate such an attack with the U.S., for example?
Well, historically, Israel will sometimes notify the United States ahead of time of impending military action, but sometimes it doesn't, and it's concerned that doing that may compromise operational details. And so from the statements from the administration, it does seem like this is an attack that Israel conducted on its own. And so I think the United States is worried about possible escalation between Israel and Iran. At the same time, I think the United States understands that Iran's activities are a problem for Israel. Diplomacy doesn't seem to be working. And so the Israelis are turning to these other means.
I want to return real quickly to this rise in violence we're seeing in the region. What is the best case scenario from this visit from Antony Blinken in your mind?
Well, realistically, I don't think they're going to have major accomplishments. I don't think there's going to be any kind of major diplomatic breakthrough. I think that this is what's sometimes referred to in the diplomatic community as gardening. You have to tend to your relationships, and so I think that's really kind of the purpose. There's a new government, and so an attempt to reestablish the relationship and make sure that the United States can continue to work with Israel to try to secure its interests in the region.
Now, Antony Blinken made some comments in Cairo before arriving in Israel. He said that Washington remains a stalwart believer in the negotiated two-state solution, the only path to a lasting resolution for the conflict. Given the stance of Israel's hard-right government that we were just talking about, that seems worlds away. So why is Blinken stressing this at this particular moment in time?
Well, I think it's important to hold out the hope of what a peaceful solution in the region could look like. And that is, I think, the one outcome, a two-state solution that could potentially resolve this. At the same time, I think there is an understanding that getting there anytime soon will be difficult. And so you have to hold those two contradictory ideas in your mind at the same time. One, that this is where we want to go. Two, it's going to be hard to get there soon. But then three, I think there is a concern that some of Israel's policies may be making it harder to get there. And so I think Blinken was trying to put some public pressure on the Netanyahu administration to make it clear that the United States won't just back anything that they do, but does want to try to lay the conditions for a peaceful settlement to this conflict in the future.
Okay. We want to thank you, Matthew Kroenig, professor at Georgetown University, director of studies at the Atlantic Council. Thanks so much for being with us here on France 24.
My pleasure. Thank you.